The SBU special operation, Spiderweb, during which drone strikes were carried out on Russian military airfields, has a strategic direction and opens up new opportunities. This opinion was expressed on air by the manufacturer of electronic warfare systems Anatoly Khrapchinsky. According to him, a similar drone can fly into the silos of the RS-24 Yars or R-36M Satana intercontinental ballistic missile systems. The success of the operation lies more in the strategic vision. That is, in the impossibility of the Russian Federation using such weapons in the future. And it opens up new possibilities. Because we need to understand that such a drone can fly into a silo, for example, of some Yars or Satana, which they want to test, the expert explained. According to him, the Russian Federation has repeatedly stated that it does not want Ukraine to be in NATO because it is a threat to Russia on its western border. But, as we see, there is a threat throughout the entire territory if they do not protect it. In this case, in the depths of the territory, where NATO is not nearby. Khrapchinsky said. As the expert added, this shows that the Russian Federation's statements about Ukraine in the context of NATO only show the imperial ambitions of the aggressor country. He drew attention to the fact that Russia has recently been carrying out fewer strikes from strategic aviation aircraft. This is due to the small remaining resources of these aircraft. Khrapchinsky emphasized, let's remember the crazy statements by Deputy Chairman of the Russian Security Council Medvedev, in which he threatened to strike Europe, Paris, Berlin. That is, here Ukraine is already acting as a guarantor of Europe's security. A more wonderful operation. The Israeli Mossad has probably already smoked all the cigarettes in its headquarters because their operation with pagers has dropped to second place. Regarding the number of planes destroyed during the Spiderweb, the expert noted that many satellite images are now appearing. But they can only show the effect of complete destruction or significant damage. Khrapchinsky explained that it is impossible to see certain things in satellite images, for example, the scattering of debris from a damaged plane that could damage important elements. The specialist also explained that it is necessary to rely on the SBU data, because they are the most objective. Russia is unlikely to publish real data on the losses it received due to the Spiderweb. According to Khrapchinsky, there were not many strategic aviation aircraft in the Russian Federation, up to 140 units, but there were about 50 that could actually perform combat missions. Since the collapse of the Soviet Union, the Russian Federation has not built a single strategic aviation aircraft. Also, according to Khrapchinsky, this is a very expensive area. In particular, the residual value of, for example, the Tu-95 MS is $26 million, while the construction of a new one is from $100 million. At least 3 people were killed and 20 injured on Tuesday after Russian strikes hit Ukraine's northeastern city of Sumy. According to Associated Press, a medical facility, residential buildings and vehicles were damaged, Sumy Regional Military Administration wrote on Telegram. The Russians brutally struck Sumy, Volodymyr Zelensky wrote on his Telegram page reacting to the attack at the city on Tuesday morning. He said there is information about 3 people killed and many injured in the attack. Zelensky said one of the rockets pierced through a wall of an apartment and didn't explode. That's all you need to know about Russia's desire to end this war, he wrote. It is clear that without global pressure, without decisive action from the United States, Europe, and everyone in the world who holds power, Putin will not agree even to a ceasefire. It comes after representatives of Russia and Ukraine met on Monday for their second round of direct peace talks in just over 2 weeks, but aside from agreeing to swap thousands of their dead and seriously wounded troops, they made no progress toward ending the 3-year-old war, officials said. The talks unfolded a day after a string of stunning long-range attacks by both sides, with Ukraine launching a devastating drone assault on Russian air bases and Russia hurling its largest drone attack of the war against Ukraine. The UK plans to mobilise billions of pounds to bolster its military-industrial base in preparation for a potential conflict with Russia, Defence Secretary John Healey has said. The statement comes ahead of the publication of the government's Strategic Defence Review on Monday. According to the BBC, the report is expected to portray Russia and China as major threats to the UK. The review is expected to allocate £1.5 billion or $2 billion toward building 6 new munitions factories. Over the next 5 years, London will dedicate around £6 billion to manufacturing long-range weapons, including Storm Shadow missiles, Healey told the BBC. The missile, developed jointly with France, has reportedly been used by Ukraine to strike civilian targets in Russian territory, according to Moscow. This is a message to Moscow as well. This is Britain standing firm, not only strengthening our armed forces, but also reinforcing our industrial base. It's part of our readiness to fight, if required, Healey said. Western support for Ukraine has exposed serious weaknesses in arms production, with British military leaders warning that weapons stockpiles are dangerously low, the BBC reported. As one of Kiev's strongest backers in Europe, London has provided Ukraine with around €15.16 billion or $17.2 billion in aid, more than two-thirds of which is military support, according to data from Germany's Kiel Institute. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer and French President Emmanuel Macron have both advocated for placing Western troops in Ukraine. They have lobbied for a peacekeeping force to be deployed in the event of a full ceasefire. Russia has warned that any NATO troops deployed to Ukraine, even under the designation of peacekeepers, would be treated as legitimate targets. It has also stated that foreign involvement would only escalate the conflict and ultimately fail to prevent Russia from achieving its military objectives. The wide-ranging military review comes amid a broader push in Europe to revitalize countries' depleted defense sectors as top generals warn that Russia could launch a large-scale conflict on the continent by the end of the decade. In Brussels, the EU has announced a plan to unlock up to €800 billion in new military spending. NATO allies are currently debating increasing their defense spending commitments to 5% of GDP ahead of the military alliance's yearly summit later this month, partly in response to repeated criticism from US President Donald Trump that countries are not stumping up enough cash.